Two Munichs, how the U.S. shifted from a cold shower to an outstretched hand in 1 year, and what it means for Europe and Ukraine. In this story, there are two scenes, one intermission and a shared line that echoes through both speeches like a password. What exactly are we defending? In 2025, that question sounded like a reproach. In 2026, it sounds like a promise of a shared journey. Scene 1. Munich 2025. Europe's problem is Europe itself. Vance takes the stage and makes a move that immediately shifts the lens. He doesn't talk about the number of divisions or the range of missiles. He approaches from the side of values and internal resilience. In his logic, security doesn't start with a budget, but with whether a government has a mandate from its people and whether it fears its own citizens. In the first crucial paragraph, he mentions Ukraine, not as the moral center of the speech, but as part of the settlement plus redistribution of responsibility. He states that the U.S. is concerned about European security and that a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine is possible. Almost immediately, he adds, Europe needs to take a big step forward to provide for its own defense. The tone is set. Support is not canceled, but it becomes conditional. We will, but now you must too. Then comes the main strike of 2025. Vance formulates his greatest concern. It isn't Russia or China, but the internal threat, Europe's retreat from basic values. He presents a gallery of examples: censorship, pressure on inconvenient speech, the closing of media, canceling elections, and the exclusion of people from the political process. In his view, these are not just political excesses, but a path that destroys a society's ability to mobilize and withstand a crisis. Here, the symbolic line appears, cementing the U.S. position as a party that came not to persuade, but to deliver a verdict. There's a new sheriff in Washington. He follows with a thesis that sounds like a slop and a warning at once. If you fear the voices and consciences of your own citizens, if you run away from your voters, then America can do nothing for you. At this point, the 2025 speech becomes radically about Europe because it is structured as a diagnosis. Without democracy, free speech, and legitimacy, there will be no security, and thus the alliance becomes fragile. In this construct, Ukraine appears briefly as something that can be settled and as a catalyst pushing Europe to become stronger on its own. Rhetorically, Ukraine is placed outside the brackets of the grand moralistic theme, becoming an element of a solution package. The intermission, a year where allies showed they could find other pillars. Between Munich 2025 and Munich 2026, a vital geo-economic shift occurs. Allies begin to demonstrate room for maneuver, not as betrayal of the U.S., but as cold calculation. If Washington raises its tone, imposes harsh conditions, and applies economic pressure, then Europe and its partners instinctively diversify their routes, markets, investments, supply chains, and diplomatic channels. During this period, Eastern trajectories, primarily China, and parallelly India, become prominent. Visits to China after Munich 2025, signals of diversification. Spanish PM Pedro Sanchez visit to Beijing, April 11, 2025. EU-China Summit in Beijing, July 24, 2025. King Felipe VI of Spain, state visit to China, November 11 to 13, 2025. President Emmanuel Macron, state visit to China, December 3 to 5, 2026. PM Mark Carney, Canada, visit to China, January 13 to 17, 2026. The parallel Indian direction. Ursula von der Leyen and College of Commissioners, India, February 27 to 28, 2025. Emmanuel Macron, India, February 17 to 19, 2026, on the eve of the new Munich. The essence of this inter-scene episode is simple. Allies showed they have alternative windows, and that China and India can serve not just as economic platforms, but as political leverage. Key insight: excessive pushing away of allies creates a vacuum that competitors fill quickly. In geo-economics, resentment is never just an emotion. It instantly transforms into contracts, investments, and new logistical routes. Scene 2. Munich 2026. We are one civilization. We must go together. In 2026, Rubio doesn't dismiss the demand for seriousness and reciprocity from Europe. However, he shifts the tone. Where Vance sounded like, "You messed up, now prove yourselves," Rubio sounds like, "We're speaking bluntly because it hurts us too. We are culturally bound. We belong together." Then comes the password line, but with a different function. What exactly are we defending? Rubio answers, "Armies don't fight for abstractions. They fight for a people, for a nation, for a way of life." Crucially, Rubio moves the conversation into the realm of geo-economics and the industrial base. He speaks of deindustrialization as a political choice, the danger of depending on foreign supply chains, critical minerals, and competition for the global South markets. Most importantly, he proposes stitching the West into a single production and technological system, regaining control over supply chains and competing together. This reveals why the rhetoric changed. 2025 sounded like an educational scolding of Europe. "You messed up, you are weak." 2026 is an attempt to pull the alliance back together, not through moralizing, but through a grand framework of shared civilization and shared economic and military reconstruction. The geo-economic backdrop makes this logical. If allies reacted to the cold shower by opening channels with China and India, the US had two choices: either continue the pressure, pushing partners towards even greater autonomy, or change the tone and say, "We don't want a rift, we want a renewal of the alliance." Rubio effectively chooses the second. Ukraine, how the rhetoric shifts. The difference in how Ukraine is framed is telling. Ukraine in Vance's view, 2025, settlement and defense burden, focus on a political deal and Europe taking more responsibility, a component of institutional reformatting. Ukraine in Rubio's view, 2026, test of Western capability, focus on US leadership as the only thing keeping the system from failing, proof that the West must remain united to prevent global collapse. Conclusion: what changed in 1 year? Number 1, attitude towards Europe, shifted from conditionality to interdependence. Vance, "Europe is weakening from within. If you run from the voter, America can't help." Rubio, "We are blunt because it hurts us too. We are culturally bound. We belong together." Number 2, focus shift. The US moved the center of conversation from moralizing to geo-economics and civilizational unity. 2026 is an invitation to a new package: industry, technology, borders, and supply chains. Number 3, Ukraine's rhetorical position, moved from a settlement item on the agenda to a litmus test for transatlantic viability. In 2026, the Ukrainian case serves as the ultimate argument. Either the West holds together and acts, or others will act in its place.